I'm going to share with you once again what I consider to be the ultimate auto HDR on the PC. And if you already know this secret, I'm gonna tell you how to get wild colors when using this trick. Just take a look at this. Before, after. Take a look at the blood here, this bloodbath we have here. Before, after. This game is not completely washed out because it has a terrible black level race, but the colors are dead. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're SDR, auto HDR, whatever trick you use, the colors are too desaturated. And you can tell me, oh, it was the creative intent. This is another planet, bro. The colors could be, whatever they want. That's fine. But I know how blood looks like. And don't tell me this is alien blood here. Okay? Because, this looks like wine or something. This is not blood. It looks terrible. Terrible, terrible. So I'm going to share with you how you can just get wild colors on HDR, and that is something that we are missing, unfortunately. We get some good HDR games sometimes, but no HDR colors. So all the colors you have on screen are SDR colors. So then people feel the need of going to the TV settings and then just crank up the saturation. Well, the problem with doing that on a game like this, for example, is that you might find some scenes, maybe later in the game, where you're gonna be clipping colors and losing details because they are actually using more saturated colors. So when you increase the color saturation of your TV, what you're doing is pushing the colors outwards. Okay? So what that means, for example, let's give a number to a specific color. Let's say this red is supposed to be 200 and look like 200 if your TV or monitor is well calibrated. Now you increase that color saturation and that color that's supposed to look like 200, it now looks like 220. That's fine if that's what you're looking for. But the problem is now when you have more saturated colors, you start losing details because it cannot go higher. So basically, let's say that the biggest number, the biggest color saturation value, let's say that it is 250. It is not, it's not on HDR, but let's say it is 250. Now you have a color that's supposed to look like 230, looking like 250. So if you have a 250 color, how is that going to look like? They're going to look the same. So you're actually losing colors. You're losing that separation of colors. So you're just clipping the colors, and that's not better. So this method might be better. You might like it more, or maybe it's doing the same thing. I haven't tested it enough, but I can tell you if you're looking for wild colors, you can get it. So now this is using reshade one more time, and this fantastic auto HDR trick that I'm talking about is an add-on to reshade called Major Paint the Cactus. And I'm gonna show you, if you are a newcomer here on the channel, I'm gonna show you step by step how to get this set up. Okay, so let me get first this bigger here. So if you already know how to install it, you can see the settings that I'm using. So I'm using this add-on. It's called Auto HDR here. Well, it's gonna be tough. So I'm using the default sRGB HDR. Well, I think it's moving because it's processing the game. But you just need to enable that and use Lilium's inverse tone mapping and the tone mapping I'm using here is the default BT2446. And then I'm using this HDR saturation shader, which I'm going to show you where to get it. By default, this HDR saturation shader is really wild. And I would actually lower this from the default 75 to 50 just to be a little bit safer, because it's super colorful in comparison. So let me show you how to get this set up. Very easy, link in the description of the video. You download Reshade, then you open Reshade, and it's telling you this is just for single player games, because these add-ons can be used for cheating and stuff. So if you want to play online, maybe it is a problem. But if you just want to enjoy the campaign, it shouldn't be a problem. And this game has anti-cheat, but you let me know if you have an issue using this. I don't think so, not for this game, but anyway, you let me know. So then you just browse where the game is and make sure you go to the right executable, because sometimes we have an executable that's on the outside on the main folder, and that's not the one. You have to go in to the right executable. So you select that, you go next, you select the API, in this case Direct 12. Then here I'm getting this screen because I already have it installed. Oh, so it's not gonna let me. So let's select a different game. Select the different games just to show you that. Yeah, it's the same thing. I have it installed there, but it's working now. Maybe because I have the game open. But anyway, it doesn't matter which game it is. You're gonna get to this screen. I uncheck all of them and select the Lilium shaders. So you're gonna find your HDR shaders by Lilium. See where they are. It's tough for me to see so close to the screen. Okay, here it is. Reshade HDR shaders by Lilium. I select them all. And then I selected this simple HDR shaders. And that's where the HDR saturation shader that I am using is. It is called Reshade Simple HDR Shaders by Max G 3D. That's the one I am using. I would also recommend you to install this one, Advanced Auto HDR by Pumbo. Heavily customizable Auto HDR and HDR tone mapping helpers. This can be used to do the tone mapping of this add-on that I'm sharing with you. So then you click next, and you're going to select this Major Paint the Cactus add-on right here, this one that says Auto HDR by Endlessly Flowering, original by Major Paint the Cactus. That's the one. Just hit next and you're done. And all you have to do is, when you open that, so the first time you open Reshade and the first time you open the game, you just have to go here, enable HDR. So you check the box that says Auto HDR and you check the box enable HDR. And then you have to close the game and open the game again. And you just have to enable this Lilium's inverse tone mapping and select. The default is fine, is the one that I use, BT2446 method A. That's the default tone mapping. I think that's the best looking. And the only thing you have to enter is the brightness that you want. So I want 800 nits for my LGC1 HGIG. If you need 1000 nits, you just type in 1000 nits. Now to type in You just press Ctrl and you click on it, and now you can type in the values. Otherwise, you have to go up and down with the brightness, and that takes longer. So type in the brightness you want, and that's it. These default values are fine, unless you want to tweak the gamma or change any of these values. You can, feel free to experiment with it. But I think that by default it looks perfect. Unless the game is like this one, looks desaturated, maybe you can try messing around with it. But I wouldn't mess around with this one specifically, with Warhammer 40K. This game doesn't have a terrible black level race or anything like that. It looks desaturated. So to fix that, this is what I would use. This HDR saturation effect. Just turn it on and that's it. But you can tweak the amount of saturation you want to use. It default is 75, but you can lower that or increase it if you want. This gamma expansion here, I don't see it doing anything really. So from 0 to 100, I don't see any difference. Maybe that's because of this auto HDR trick. Maybe with native HDR it does do something. Here it says generates HDR colors from bright saturated SDR ones. Maybe this is for auto HDR or something like that. I don't know. If you use this on SDR, I don't know what would happen. But here with this auto HDR trick, it's not doing anything. So it doesn't really matter. But this one is definitely doing something. You see, from 0 to 100, it gets wild. And the default is 75. And you also have another options here. Other options: vibrance, adaptive, average. I haven't experimented too much with this. I just needed to get more colors. I said, okay, let me try this one, see if it's easy enough. Because there are other ways you can get a more colorful picture, but it takes more steps and it's more difficult. This one is just one click. You just turn it on and it just works. And of course, you can always use RTX HDR, but you're gonna lose performance. More performance than with this, for sure. This might lose like 2 or 3 frames, something like that. But with RTX HDR, you're gonna lose like 10 frames. In my experience with my system, or even more sometimes. So that is way too much. And these games coming out today are too demanding, man. Too demanding. This one specifically, it's having issues with the. I have to update Riva Turner because it doesn't let me launch the game with this version, but it works later. If I open it later, it should work now. Let's see. It should work now. Oh, here it is. So on this game, for example, I'm struggling to get 60 frames per second. So I have to use a very aggressive upscaling to get 60 frames. I do like that the game has dynamic resolution scaling. That's great. So I use DLSS with dynamic and I just input the target. 60 frames per second. I tried 100. No way I can get 100 frames per second. The settings that the game have are very... they don't make a big difference. Of course, you can always lower shadows and stuff. I tried that. There was no way I could get 100 frames locked without the game looking like a potato. So if I cannot get 100, I try to get 60, a lock 60, because I like to play with a lock FPS. And then I use this. This is what I do. I use BFI on my LG C1. I use black frame insertion, which is not really black frame insertion. It's like PWM strobing, and it improves the motion clarity. So that's how I would play this game. Lock 60 FPS, All Emotion Pro High, and then I would, and it's holding the 60 FPS at least at this beginning. I got some drops when loading new areas, but it was fine. So I would use dynamic tone mapping, and then I would set this master in peak max CLL to 1000. So to enter this menu, this is a secret menu, 11131111. You step on select mode, and then you change this master in peak max CLL to 1000, and then here on this tone mapping, instead of 800 nits, I want 1000 nits. So I just enter 1000 nits here, and that's how I would try to play that. Now if that looks too dark, near black, because BFI is making the whole picture darker, then I would just come here. This game has good settings for SDR. I like it. I feel like they missed the calibration, the saturation slider. That's what they are missing here on this calibration screen. Maybe this is raising the black levels, and we can fix it with reshade. The HDR calibration app is crashing for some reason, so I don't know why that happened, but yeah, this is working. So I would do this and increase the visibility over here, and just check that it doesn't look too washed out, and if it does, then I would lower the black level. Now the problem is with this game, for some reason the HDR analysis tool is not working, so I cannot fine-tune the black level. So it would take some tweaking to play with BFI, which is what I'm gonna do. The other thing I am going to compare with this is the SDR HDR trick. So what I would do to get more brightness for BFI is to use this slider. So turn off the Auto HDR mod from Reshade, turn that off, and then just open the game on SDR, increase this slider. And this game is originally 2.2, so then I have to use this ICC profile or this gamma correction that I share with you. Link in the description of the video so you learn how to get this set up. So I would use this sRGB to gamma 2.2 executable, max out this brightness, use dynamic tone mapping with master in peak max CLL 540, and that might be a better option for BFI. I have to compare that with this and see which one works better. So yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions. If you have any questions, again, I don't want to be hard with the game. It looks like it is very fun. The gameplay is great, but yeah, unfortunately, these new games coming out, there's always something fundamentally wrong with them when it comes to the visuals, and I feel like they are missing things that should be easy. I mean, colors looking desaturated, that's not a big problem. And I don't believe that was their intent. I don't believe so. Like, how are you going to want the blood to look so desaturated? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, this, for example, this health bar right here looks way more red than the blood. That doesn't make sense at all. So why would they make that mistake? That's something very, very easy to fix. It shouldn't be a problem at all to add a saturation slider to the calibration controls, which are great. Those calibration settings are very good for SDR. Why not? A saturation slider is easy. And then the performance is not great because they are targeting 60 FPS with upscaling. I saw a review of the game. I have to say, it was John Jea. I saw his review. He's okay with a 4090 getting like 70 frames per second. 80, 70 frames per second. That's not good enough. Okay, this game doesn't have ray tracing. These are just normal settings. He's okay. He's like, okay, at least on my system it runs well because it's like 70, 80 frames on 4090. That's not running well, I'm sorry. With a 4090 you should be crushing frames. Crushing frames. So 60, 70 frames, that's very bad performance in my opinion. And these are not like futuristic settings or anything like that. So the performance of these games are just not good enough, man. Lower whatever you have to lower here to get a higher performance, and do not target with upscaling. Okay, upscaling is to get better performance. Better performance. So even just 60 FPS at native 4K with a 4090, that's not good enough, man. That's not good enough. Should be crushing frames way over 120 with a 4090 at 4K. That's what I would expect with a GPU like that. And these developers, they are just targeting, they think that 60 FPS is okay. It's not okay. For high-end PCs, it's not okay. It's not okay. So then when you try to play that with something that's not a 4090, then you're like, okay, well, I have to play at 1080p. You know, DLSS performance, I have to play that with a 3080. I have a 3080 and a 5800X 3D. And I am back to 1080p. I'd much rather play on my plasma then. You know, if the game doesn't support HDR and I have to play at 1080p, why am I playing with this flickering using my LG C1? Just play with the plasma. The plasma has 4 times better motion than sample and hold, and it doesn't flicker as much. And the color saturation is higher than my LG Z1, significantly higher. So, yeah, well, I'm just playing on a plasma then. I'm back to playing on a plasma TV with a good PC, a PC that should be better than the current consoles. So then what are you going to expect for the console players? Worse than that, that's not good enough. Worse than that is not good enough. So yeah, so all these new games, they have the same mistake, but I believe it's not that they couldn't do better, it's that that's not what they are looking for. And they get away with that, and that's the trend, because maybe they are not getting enough pushback with that. All the opposite. They get all these big YouTube channels praising the graphics and, oh, look at this, and it's not, I don't think it's the best for us. But yeah, that's enough ranting about it. I mean, not a rant, just to give them constructive criticism. That's not what I would try. Other than that, gameplay is very fun so far. This is just the beginning of the game. I feel like it couldn't be better. The gameplay wise, this game, I feel like it's perfect. So far it's just, okay, that's what this game needs. The gameplay is great, so I don't have complaints about that. But the image clarity and the colors, HDR, all of that is messed up, and it shouldn't. So yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions, and if you have any questions.